some breaking news that's come into us at talkTV. O.J. Simpson, the former American football star, has died at the age of 76. In a message on X, his family said, on April 10th, our father, Orenthal James Simpson, succumbed to his battle with cancer. He was surrounded by his children and grandchildren. During this time of transition, his family ask that you please respect their wishes for privacy and grace. The former NFL player, who stood trial for the double murder of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman in the 90s, only to be acquitted, passed away in Las Vegas. And we'll bring you more on that story as we have it. I'm joined now by talkTV presenter Daisy McAndrew. Daisy, this is shocking news.
Yeah, I think to those of us of a certain generation, and I count myself at 51 as being of that generation, O.J. Simpson was such a big figure. And then, of course, his case was one of those moments where not just America stopped and was fixated on every turn of the trial, but really the world was. It was one of the first seminal trials that everybody wanted. You get back from school or work and say, what happened at the O.J. trial today? And he's continued, obviously, to be a deeply controversial figure. And as you said, acquitted of that, was convicted of on other trials, but an astonishing story going from this one of the most famous American sportsmen ever,
right,
then to sort of criminal, would-be criminal, and then always a controversial figure.
Yeah, I guess for some of our younger viewers and listeners, OJ played for the Buffalo Bills, the San Francisco 49ers. He was bigger than David Beckham was in Beckham's day.
Yeah,
in terms of global sport. He was getting advertising campaigns, sponsorship deals all over the shop. He was the dream boy of American sport.
And then moved into acting, which was really unusual in those days. Of course, nowadays we see people like The Rock, who go from, or Vinnie Jones, or whoever it might be, who go from acting into Hollywood and into movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously one of the most obvious. Ronald Reagan doing it from acting into politics. You have these figures, but they are few and far between. And OJ was one of those.
Well, you say Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's funny because The Terminator was supposed to be played by O.J. Simpson, and he actually turned it down and it went to Arnold Schwarzenegger instead. But I remember being a kid and seeing that car chase unrolling on television. The white Ford Bronco, I think it was, going down the freeway, dozens of police cars, helicopters, the press were all over it.
Yeah, and nowadays we're quite used to seeing, particularly in the States, there's the first sign or first sighting of a car chase and they send up the news helicopter and we see it then. But again, it was such a big deal. It was like a movie, a dramatic movie being played out in front of our very eyes. And so rolling news was relatively new in those. I know I'm sounding like a complete granny now, but things were really different in those days. Rolling news, helicopter cams, all the rest of it. Hollywood sporting superstars accused of murder. I mean, it was an astonishing story.
And at the time, politically, Los Angeles was a racial hotbed because a few years prior, Rodney King had been beaten up by police officers, white police officers had been beaten to the floor. It was caught on camera, and they had the famous LA riots about that.
And of course, this was an interracial marriage, which was still relatively unusual then. And and there was, there was an element of racism. The other thing that I've been reminded recently, I've been watching a lot of, don't hate me for this, Kardashians with my teenage daughter.
This is where it began.
And of course, we're reminded that the Kardashian father was OJ's attorney and was completely involved in that case and remained, I think, close friends. And obviously, he took a lot of heat from being, from representing OJ.
Yeah, so technically we can blame O.J. Simpson for the Kardashians because that is where the notoriety started. Robert Kardashian Sr. at the time, and then it just spilled out to the rest of them. But going back to the trial, another iconic moment from that for me was the glove. O.J. Simpson trying to put a fit on the black glove and claiming it doesn't fit.
It was too small.
It was too small.
And people there, you can see it there on the screen. And people have talked about this for years ever since, saying that he was showing off his acting skills. Like it looked like he was pretending. Oh, I can't, like Cinderella or the Ugly Sisters trying to get their feet into the into the glass slipper. That it was a sort of similar thing. But again, a completely iconic legal moment.
Yeah, absolutely. What was also really fascinating is that 22 years after the trial, and he was acquitted for the murder of Nicole Brown and her friend, Ron Goldman.
Ron Goldman.
Yeah, we keep saying friend, I'm not sure why. But 22 years afterwards, Netflix, American Crime Story, it was all relived all over again with David Schwimmer, pretty much an all-star cast. David Schwimmer played Robert Kardashian in that Netflix drama series. But it just brought everything back to life and added more colour. I remember watching that series and thinking, I mean, obviously I was a kid when the initial trial happened, but I was like, I don't remember that happening. I don't remember this happening. And there was all these theories about Robert Kardashian removing the suit that may have had blood on and taking it in front of the world's press.
And it's been extraordinary, actually. Netflix have done so many of these, either dramatisations or docudramas or documentaries, you know, whether or not it was about Monica Lewinsky or Michael Jackson or, you know, all these huge stories that then bring it to life for another generation that, you know, certainly I think most of the people who saw that OJ documentary wouldn't have remembered it first time round. They wouldn't have remembered Monica Lewinsky, you know, Michael Jackson. And it does show the power that those shows and those Hollywood executives have, depending on what angle they're going to take, that they will influence. I mean, we've talked about this as a difference. This isn't about, you know, criminal cases, but even the way that they've put The Crown together has changed a whole generation's view of historical royal occasions, just because Netflix has the power to do it.
And Cuba Gooding Jr., who played OJ in the Netflix series, even he got flack for playing the role of OJ Simpson. Now, OJ, I would say after the trial and his acquittal, his life never really went back to being what it was before. He was never the superstar again.
Well,
People didn't want to be around him.
But because the cloud of suspicion never left him.
Yeah.
That was, you know, it was as simple as that. And yet, whilst, you know, you couldn't write in a newspaper, OJ was guilty, because you'd be very liable for libel and slander. You know, so people didn't, but the cloud never went away.
Yeah, this is true. And he ended up going into prison again, of course. He was arrested for stealing his own merchandise. Plenty of strange occurrences for him in his later life.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fascinating now that he is dead to see because I would imagine the floodgates will open now. Now that, you know, litigation, you know, you can't be sued by somebody who's dead. Litigation is no longer an issue. And I would bet my bottom dollar that Netflix show will be back on our screens very, very soon.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Daisy.
Pleasure.